and I'm sure many of you can relate to this, especially for those of you who have partners in the business. And in this case, there's a lot of infighting amongst the partners, and they're really focused on the wrong things, and it was wound up kind of stunting the growth of the business. So what do I mean by that? So they were focused on each other, and they're bickering about each other, and there were side calls, and between the partners to complain about one and what was going on here or there, and so they were again very typical. This happens a lot with clients.
we get into the middle of those a lot.
Yeah.
Where I think a lot of our work is psychology. We should have the study behind that because we spend a lot of time on that.
We do. We have a lot of again. The partners can be anything from people who used to be friends or pure business partners to spouses to siblings to you name it. We've had all kinds of partners that we've dealt with over our time together, and it's amazing how similar this is. Where often we'll have a one-on-one discussion, and it'll be very different than it is in the group, or they'll bring up things to us that as they kind of role play it and practice it, to get ready to kind of bring it up in the group. And it's very important if you have partners to be very open and honest and frank with each other. And it can get troublesome because often you have partners too. As we look at, I mentioned our 7 keys. We also have our 3 circles of the business that we look at.
3 circles. What are those?
All right. First one, which most people know and love, is the product or service of the company, which is where most companies start. You also have marketing and sales, which helps drive the business and grow. And the third piece, which often gets kind of pushed aside until the company reaches a certain level, which is the administrative piece of it, which is the numbers and the planning and the people side of stuff.
So those 3 circles encompass everything that can go on in a company. So no matter what your problem, you could plot those in some form within those interlocking 3 circles. You should check out our website to see a little better visual of both the 7 keys and the 3 circles.
Sure. If you go to MaximumVP.com, there's a tab there called MVP Playbook, and they're both underneath there. You can see those visuals very, very well. So in this case, it was a little different. Often you have the case where most of the partners are pretty good at the product or service. In this case, we had one partner that was kind of the product or service. We had one partner that was really in charge of marketing and sales, and one was in charge of administrative. And so it didn't. People don't necessarily start that way, but it's often how things kind of wind up being the case. So a couple things that we had with the issue. I mentioned before there's some infighting with the partners. And a big part of what was driving that was the vision. I mentioned that as one of the 3 keys I was going to highlight today. So the vision part of this. They weren't all on the same page. So we talk about a vision as 10 years out. You are wherever you are today. Where do you see yourself? Where do you see your company 10 years from now?
Present tense, that's right. Somewhere 10 years from now, 2026. That's what we're talking about today.
And what we know about, and we've discovered in our 15 years together here coaching small companies, most people don't think that far out. They're focused on this month, maybe this week for sure, or today for sure. They stop thinking about 5-10 years out. It's a big part of what we try to do is get them thinking that way again.
They might have thought that way when they first started their business, but with the daily grind and the operating mode of let's take care of today and no time for anything and blah blah blah, the last thing they seem to want to do is just sit back and visualize where they could be 10 years from now.
Right.
And we know you can be anywhere in 10 years.
So with that background, you can imagine how difficult it can be to get even one person to be able to state clearly where they want to be, let alone getting, in this case, we had 3 partners to get them all on the same page. It's very difficult to do. So we had some good discussions around that to make sure it was clarified, to say, where do we all want to be? And there was some division amongst the partners, but we were able to get them on the same page where they all saw eventually having an exit for the business. And one of the keys of that is it comes back around now to the organization plan I was mentioning. Okay, what we had in this case, we had the one partner was the key part of the product or service. Well, when you have a person who's a big part of the product or service, it makes it very difficult to sell that because you aren't selling something that's there. You don't have an organization in place to make things run. So they had the issue there where they weren't having that as part of it, and they weren't focused on the profit plan. One of the partners is more of a job guy. We talk about job people versus entrepreneurs.
Wait, what's the profit plan?
Yeah, the profit plan. That's going to forecast out our sales and our expenses by month for the next year to show how we're going to make money. And we had one partner who was more of a job guy that was focused more on how he was making money, putting money in his pocket. at the expense of the other two partners. Now, when this company started out, the other two partners, even though they weren't product guys, they were part of what helped to finance the start of the company. And that got discounted pretty quickly as the company started to kind of get up and running. So they had to focus everybody on the profit plan and showing that, hey, there's enough money here, and hey, that the partner that's very actively involved in the product or service could get compensated for that, but also they all needed to be able to make profits. But they weren't focused on that profit plan. So getting them to start to rally around that profit plan was amazing. Within a few months, how things started to kind of calm down, where the bickering and infighting didn't go away totally, but it started to subside because the energies are now refocused, and having confidence and having some discussions that hadn't been had in years started to happen.